Shalom to you and welcome. In this video, we'll be looking at parallel and perpendicular lines. Two non-vertical lines are parallel if and only if their slopes are equal. So if MY is the slope of the first line and M2 is the slope of the second line, both slopes must be equal. Look at this equation. It's in slope-intercept form. 3 is the y-intercept and 2 is the slope because it's the coefficient of x. And this is another equation with the slope of 2 and a different y-intercept. So if you graph those two lines, they will be parallel because both of them have the same slope. So these two lines will never intersect. If you solve this system of equation, it will be undefined because there's no solution. Two non-vertical lines are perpendicular if and only if the product of their slopes is equal to 1. So like here, these two lines, they intersect at one point, and that point is perpendicular. It forms 90-degree angle. That's what it means to be perpendicular. So if you look at this, again, their slope, they are different, but they are similar in a way. If you look at this one is negative 3 over 2, this is like positive 2 over 3, which is the reciprocal of 3 over 2 and the opposite of it. So there are two things. The opposite, reciprocal. So if you multiply the two slopes, they'd have to equal -1. Or if you solve for one of the slope, it's going to give you the opposite reciprocal of the other. Okay, let's solve problems. What is the slope of a line that is parallel to the x-axis? Well, first of all, recall what is the slope of the x-axis. The slope of the x-axis is equal to 0. Any lines that is horizontal. Any horizontal line has a slope of 0 because there is no rise. It is the rise, the change in y, that gives the slope its rise. So there's no rise in the y-axis. So the slope of any line that will be parallel to the y-axis, to the x-axis, will also have the slope of 0. Okay. It will also have the slope of 0. So this is like x-axis, this is like y-axis. Okay, what is the slope of a line that is perpendicular to the x-axis? Well, one line we know that is perpendicular to the x-axis is y-axis. They form 90-degree angle where they intersect. So both of them are perpendicular. And again, what do we remember about y-axis? Y-axis, the slope is undefined. The slope of y-axis is undefined. So it has no slope. Why? So any line that will be parallel to the y-axis will be perpendicular to the x-line. So any line that is perpendicular to the x-axis will also be undefined. Okay. All right. Parallel and perpendicular vectors. Since vectors are like rays, they could intersect each other or be parallel to each other. So, and remember that vectors are expressed as ordered pair of changing in x and change in y, which is horizontal change and vertical change in case the variable changes. So, but slope is the change in y over change in x, which is the vertical change over horizontal change. So, but it's just the way they are written differently. So we can use this idea of the slope, equal slope are parallel and perpendicular slope are opposite reciprocal to solve problems like this. If we know the vector, there are two vectors. One of them is 3, 6. The other vector is -2k. They are parallel, so find the value of k. Well, we can just set the setup. We know because they are parallel, so slope of the first one has to equal the slope of the second one. So let's write this as a slope, which is change in y over change in x. Okay, so instead of having that, we just have 3. So this is x, this is y. So do not make mistake of writing the first one on top just because it comes first. No. Remember, the first one goes down is the x. It's y over x. Yeah, I'll write that. Oops. Y over x. Okay, so 3 over 6 is going to be k is the y over negative 2 is the x. So once we have this, we have proportion, we can cross multiply and we get like 3k is equal to the product of the other one, negative 12. So if we solve for k, which will be dividing both sides by 3, we'll get negative 4. So k will be negative 4. Then how about this? Well, they are perpendicular. If they are perpendicular, it means the product of their slope has to equal 1. So slope of 1 times slope of 2 is going to be equal to negative 1. So again, we write the vector like slope y over x. So we do negative 5 over 3 times 6 over c is equal to negative 1. So we can cross multiply this and then we will get negative 5c. This is multiply, sorry, this is right, sorry, here this is not equal sign, this is multiplication, so we can multiply horizontally. So negative 5 times 6 is negative 30. Negative 30 over 3 times c is 3c, and is equal to negative 1. And now we can actually simplify this by dividing by 3. If we divide by 3, we are going to get, I'm just going to move up here, we are going to get negative 10 over c equals negative 1. So, and now we can multiply both sides by c, and that will give us negative 10 equals negative c. Divide both sides by negative 1, then we get 10 is equal to c. So c is 10. That's the number we are looking for. Write an equation of the line that passes through the point 12, 7 and perpendicular to the line y equals negative 2x plus 3. Okay, we know this line is perpendicular. So being perpendicular means that the slope of 1 times the slope of 2, the second line, is going to equal negative 1. So the slope is the first thing we need to find. So let's say that this is the first equation. So, and if looking at this is in slope intercept form, so the slope here is negative 2. So our slope 1 is negative 2. So we can substitute it here and solve. So it's negative 2 for m1 times m2 is equal to negative 1. So if we solve for m2 is going to be negative 1 divided by negative 2, which is positive 1/2. So the slope of the second line is going to be negative 1/2. Now we are going to use it to write the equation because we know one point that passes through that line, and then we know the slope of that line. So we can use point slope formula, which is y minus y1 is equal to mx minus x1. And then, so if we substitute, that's y minus y1. Y1 is the 7. So what our slope is 1/2 x minus x1 is 12. Again, be careful of the order. Make sure you put right thing in the right, so we can distribute here. So this is 1/2 x minus 1/2 of 6. 1/2 of 12 is 6. And on the left side, we still have y minus 7. For now, we can add 7 to both sides. So 7 plus -7 we go. We have 1/2 x plus 1. And this is the equation of the other line. So if we notice, if we look at their slope and the slope of the other one, okay, so the slope here is -2, the slope here is positive 1/2, so it's the opposite reciprocal of the other one. So this line and this line are perpendicular. If you graph them, they are going to intersect at 90 degrees.